All right. Welcome to the Prep Talk podcast. This is part 6 of the Nights with Nick series hosted by myself and Pete's Flips. Tonight's episode is all about ways to make your business more efficient with automation and no code tools. With us tonight, we have a very special guest, Neil Brady. Neil's a long-time Amazon seller and founder of nocodeseller.com, specializing in done-for-you no-code development with a platform known as Bubble. So, Neil, thanks for joining us this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
All right. So let's just get right into it. Let's start with tell us a little bit about your journey. Take us back to the beginning, a little bit of your experience with Amazon and how you got started.
Yeah, sure. Back in 2017, I was doing some entry-level jobs and stuff, and I've always loved books. So I found myself in, the library and I'm browsing books. And I think I sold a textbook that year. And I was like, maybe I can do something with this. I happened to sell it on Amazon. It was easy. It was quick, some money going in there. But basically, I started doing some searching online and, stumbled upon the Book Flipper and Nathan Holmquist. He's got some software called ScanLister. And they were going to library sales and scanning books, with the scouting apps, of course. And I decided, I'm doing this entry level job. I'm not making too much, so I might as well jump into something else. And started scanning books, and I just went really deep on it. And wasn't too long after that, by the end of 2017, that I found out about eFlip, and that's the online textbook flipping. Cale Broth made that. So I started flipping on there. Everything went smooth. I was making money right away. Books were kind of easy in that sense. You buy them at a big discount. Never had any problems with that. Wasn't long after that, though, Amazon, all the publishers sued Amazon. So I landed in some trouble, and I was suspension from Amazon by the end of 2018, which really got me thinking about whether I wanted to be on that platform or not. And one of the reasons I went back to local flipping was because the books were so cheap. I knew I could put a little bit of skin in the game without and still make some money without risking having a ton of capital in, like with what I was doing with the textbooks at the time. Flash forward to shortly after 2020 and all the local arbitrage goes away. I find myself back online and thinking Amazon hasn't booted me off again, or they're not suspending me, so maybe I'll have another go at the online arbitrage. But this time I start thinking a little differently. I'm like, I wonder how little I can spend on a book and still get some meat out of it. And I essentially start thinking of it as almost like a portfolio, and I kind of extend the time horizon on the books as well. So like I'm willing to wait for 6 months sometimes for a book to flip over, which is not what I did at first. I was kind of looking for that high turn seasonal book pattern. So and yeah, I guess since then, like the last 2 years, I've had some really big wins on it, and I have, because of all the research I put into Keepa, it's really been it's been with way less risk, I guess. So that's kind of why I've stayed put in the books. So
awesome. Let's unpack that a little bit, right? Because in this day and age, you see a lot of the content that's out on social media is you kind of view book selling as a gateway to some of the other ways to sell on Amazon, whether it's OA, whether it's wholesale or private label. You've spent the last about 7 years roughly staying in the book side of the shop. Walk us through what were some of the main reasons why you chose to stay in the book niche. What were some of the benefits of doing that?
Well, the first thing is that I love books. The second biggest reason, like as I was saying, I really had my doubts about Amazon after that suspension. I really didn't want to put myself at risk again. So what happened in the last 3 years is, especially after reading, I've got some books, of course, to show you. This book here was really enlightening. You guys probably know that one, right? Profit First.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so after reading that, I kind of figured I could put in a smaller amount, have my inventory completely paid off, and then also have the the cash flow for myself as well. I did dabble in wholesale books for a little bit, and I just didn't find the guaranteed wins like I did with books. Essentially, the books being discounted so heavily, that was one of the main reasons I stuck with books. I haven't. I mean, I since joining X, I've seen all kinds of different business models. And I find it really interesting. The one thing I did notice too was that usually you kind of got to hire a much bigger team as well when you're not picking off specific items and everything. I noticed like sometimes you need like $1 million in revenue to make 50,000 or something net profit. So like I was kind of a little turned off by that, but I know you can outsource the prep centers and all that, and
Yep.
I haven't had too much success with that. With the I have so like I do have collectible books, and they really do need to be specifically graded. So that, I mean, one of the downsides, but I'm just handling way less inventory, fewer ASINs than most sellers, really. So
Sure.
yeah.
So what does the operation look like when you started kind of versus now? So elements that I'm looking to pull would be like, are you fulfilling yourself? Are you leveraging FBA? What are the tactics that you leverage to find really good books over the time? And what is like, is that viable? I mean, it seems like it is today. What would you recommend for the person that's just kind of starting with books?
Yeah. So I've always been like 100% FBA. Love the idea of Amazon, taking on all the work. And
Yeah.
then that prime bump was a big thing, especially for the textbooks. Students wanted their books quick, instantly. So I haven't noticed, actually, I did know, actually, with a few of the collectible books, I have noticed like the prime and, having the buy box making the difference, so there was like an example of a book I sold for $1,800. It was in there for a week, and then I had another copy of it that I had in collectible condition, which kind of got suppressed. So it's kind of sad. It's been sitting there at like 1,200 for like a year. So FBA for sure, all the way.
So, like, I mean, how did your operation evolve? So,
Oh,
I imagine you
gotcha.
maybe started at like maybe scanning Goodwill, maybe you evolved from
Oh
there.
yeah, totally. So the sourcing, started locally, looking at those kind of keep it charts on your phone. And what I actually initially did was buying books for like $1, and I ended up finding this bookstore that they sold for half price merchant fulfilled. So the price of the books were kind of $50-$100. And I kind of looked at the chart. And I'm like, this is kind of selling slow, but I wonder if this $100 book can kind of turn into a $500 book. Sure enough, took 6 months, and that was a local example of flipping, putting a little bit in and getting much more out. In terms of the operations, I didn't know how to use a spreadsheet, honestly, to begin. And I knew I saw something like I'm like listing these items one at a time. And I remember listing maybe 10 books, and it was like an hour later. And I was like, there's gotta be another way. So one of the first things I built out was for Amazon to Amazon flips was a spreadsheet to essentially convert over those ASINs into listings, because all you have to do is bulk upload that sheet and essentially match the Amazon catalog. Um, there was a point where that was good enough, and definitely sped up the operations. I did use some software. I did test out some software. I think it was called ScanLister at the time. You could essentially scan like 100 books and essentially have all the grading done ahead of time. So um, fast forward a little bit more, I just found Bubble, no code tool. And essentially with that, I was able to get rid of the spreadsheets. So my emails would come in. I would use a little, not a script, but regular expression. So it's kind of like, the computer reading the data and pulling it out. So I no longer had to, make that transfer. And I knew it with the spreadsheets. Sometimes if the book didn't ship out right away, it wouldn't get included. So I knew that every time I made an order on Amazon, it would be included in the program. So that kind of ensured some accuracy and sped things up there. And then once everything's kind of graded, I was able to directly, instead of going over to Amazon site and uploading the spreadsheet, able to hit a button and bulk upload it right there. So skipping a bunch of steps that way. And I tried prep centers early on, and I just every year I'd lose like 30, 40 bucks. And I know it's not always their fault, but they the mail service would get drop off pounds and pounds of books. And I remember going down and looking at some of these prep centers, and they'd show me like the labels just completely ripped off. And I just I don't know if I can lose 20 $500,000 books is what I'm doing right now, so there's a point where I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep this in-house, streamline everything else. And really it takes me maybe a couple hours on the weekend, 2-3 hours or something, and I get all my books in for the month. And my UPS guy is really good. They'll hold on. They'll hold on to books, and they'll send me an email if it's piles up too much. I know some of the UPS stores are a little bit picky, but I got a really good one. So that's pretty much the whole operation there. Yeah.
Excellent. So we're gonna pivot slightly a little bit here, right? So Neil, you and I got a chance to connect on Twitter or X, and I saw right away that you had a site out there for nocodeseller.com. So it was very clear that we had similar type journeys. But what I found really interesting with you is you don't have a formal software engineering background, correct?
I do not. So just a long time using Bubble, which is a visual programming system. And what I did discover was there's actually a much bigger learning curve than I expected. And it's like it's up to a year actually to kind of figure it out, just to show you how complex things can get. So I started that. I launched this service after having a look at Design Joys. They had this subscription model as well. And I launched it. I put it out there about a month ago. I've had a couple people talk to me. It seems like they're more into they've got a fixed budget and they want a timeline. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking I'm going to leave it out there. I've got a wait list and everything. But I might be thinking of pivoting at some point and trying to kind of help people more directly. I originally had a lot of people from the Bubble community looking for hourly coaching, and that's kind of where I got started with that. So I helped a lot of people, especially with. I'm really glad Amazon got rid of this, but the AWS for signature. Are you familiar with that one?
Yep. Yeah. There's a couple different signatures in there where they have some different.
They got rid of it. They got rid of it for the SP API. So it's just such a quick direct connection. But I helped a few people with that. I've actually got 250 people using this free plugin. So I've had a lot of traffic from that. So something I could learn, to try and get some traffic from, some leads from. So, but I do have some people, emailing me directly, or a couple of people on X there. But I'm not sure that the model's quite fitting the development process. So I've had some feedback there.
So let's talk a little bit about, so for the non-technical business owner that's listening to the pod tonight, what would you recommend, just being in that same type of mindset, no formal experience? What would you put as a recommendation of areas to get started in terms of making your own business a little bit more efficient, or different things like that? Can you just walk through that journey? Because I think we kind of glossed over that a little bit.
Okay.
And where you went straight in and you're like, hey, I'm a Bubble developer. There was a whole journey there we want to unpack. So
yeah.
let's talk about that a little bit. Like, why why go after software if it's something that you had no formal experience in it, and talk about that part.
Yeah, so doing things, man. I saw an example of this on X too. Someone's like, line 700 of the Google sheet, no other way to do it. Let's copy and paste this in. And I'm like, oh no, yeah, there's lots of ways to do this. Um, so it really comes down to like, do you want to do things one at a time, or do you want to, grab thousands of ASINs or whatever, and put it into a spreadsheet and use macros or, a small function to automate some of that stuff away, um, it's tough doing it through the Amazon interface, 100% manual one at a time. I got sick of it, right? Like it's a barrier to working on your business. And I'd suggest like diving into some, Google Sheets and learning just some simple formulas in the boxes next to it. Like if you want to figure out even from your sales data. And this was something actually Caleb Roth did with, he had a tracking spreadsheet. And that was something I did use before getting onto Bubble and building my own software. You could upload all your SKUs and match it with the sales data. So by the end of it, you knew where your cost of goods sold were. And it was something you just hand over alongside your other Amazon data to your accountant or bookkeeper. So really, yeah, if you're just kind of tired of doing that manual work, and I'd start with spreadsheets. I know there's Airtable, Zapier. I'm not doing a whole lot of communication. I see a lot of people doing reaching out to suppliers, and there's a lot of other automation there that you could look into as well. Otherwise, yeah, you're kind of, I'm seeing a lot of posts on X about VAs and kind of going that way if you want to help your business, so, but yeah, once you sort of get traction and get rolling, I'd suggest looking into these things, and start with some simple stuff. And yeah, I mean, you get help too. There's lots of freelancers and coaches out there too for the, and the YouTube. I mean, the amount of YouTube videos and people jumping in right now, there's no better time like to learn about it and automate your business. So
Yeah, I think one of the recommendations I like to give, especially with folks that come from a non-technical background, is start with your own problems and areas to improve. So Neil, you hit on it, right? You had a series of tasks that were manual, that were cumbersome to do through Seller Central, and you found something where you needed to solve your own problem, right? Some developers will call that, oh, that's being lazy, but that's the best way to do it, right? Once you do something more than a couple of times, it's time to either look for an opportunity to either automate it or outsource it, right? So if it's something
absolutely.
that's repeatable, it's a perfect opportunity for a script or a low code no code platform like Bubble or some of the other ones that are out there. Or maybe it's something that's not repeatable, and we give it over to our virtual team to be able to go through. So walk us through a little bit about where you want to go next, right? So you've been in the Amazon community for a pretty long time now. You've had some experience now over the last couple of years with working in no code platforms. So where do you see, based off of your experience, where some of these capabilities are going and how the common business owner could take advantage of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't plan on going anywhere with the books. Like I love the books. So I'll keep flipping books forever. That's going to essentially be like my investment portfolio on the side,
Mhm.
In terms of no code. Yeah. I think people would really benefit from a template or kind of working one-on-one with me for sure. Like, getting to learning that automation, everything. So just trying to expand that side of business, essentially, the software side of business for people. So I'm just going to try, like putting up the landing pages and see what sticks with people. Seems like people, I've been in a few discords and everything, they are looking for solutions to list their books in bulk, or I do see some opportunity even outside of the books for other online arbitrageurs, especially I think I've seen Saul Sells actually. I had a talk with him.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's sort of on these, the same track as well, like getting that data from Amazon and trying to automate some of those tasks, right? So I just see myself in that space, and I haven't quite figured out the product or the solution yet. It's been a long time, but
That's the hard part.
yeah. I'm happy with the books. I love the books. So
Yeah. So do
yeah.
you, if someone were to introduce this into their business, um, what would you like? Very entry level, we're automating a few tasks. I guess what sort of financial commitment would they be perhaps looking at? And then in terms of like a maintenance perspective, making sure that everything's right, it's like working properly, like from a time commitment. What would you kind of ballpark that at?
Yeah, I mean, if you really want, if I'm not building from a template or anything, you really want custom software. So I've got the price up right now for about $3,000 a month, and really like that would be ongoing essentially. The timeline really depends. I've had some people approach me who want kind of these apps that have been going for 4 or 5 years, and they've got all these features, but really like one core feature to get started. Maybe 4 weeks to get that done with Bubble. Um, that's what I would say. That
But
so
interesting. I
that's
mean,
yeah, yeah.
you could save yourself a lot of, um, admin work. So then you're not, then maybe you could take that virtual assistant that's working on rooming through a spreadsheet, move them over to
Mhm.
sourcing, and maybe they could outperform that investment on admin work that's repeatable.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen some people spending a couple $1,000s a month on, maybe 3,000 a month or 4,000 a month on, a team of VAs.
Yep.
And like, yeah, you could replace part of it, or you can enhance. Like, there's maybe there's some tasks you don't want software to do, or you want a human interaction in there, or yeah, there's a lot of tasks like that. That could either enhance a VA or replace some of their work, or yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
A couple things to think about too, because for some of our audience, 3,000 a month may seem like a lot initially. So a couple things that you can start to look at. The beauty of a lot of these no code tools is they have a lot of free offers that you can take advantage of. So I would say start small. There's different areas that you could do right off the bat. Neil, you talked about Google Sheets. I think that's a fantastic way to be able to start getting into the mindset of how do you optimize, and then once you optimize your process, how do you automate that? As you continue to go, some other items in the tech stack that are also in the no code platform arena that are pretty easy to use with a low barrier to entry would be take a look at Airtable from a data management perspective. Has a lot of different integrations that you can utilize that interface with all the different types of systems that Amazon business owners would be used to. And for some of your standard operating procedures, Notion is great for that. So Notion has a lot of integrations that you can take advantage of that will tie into that as well. Now, if you're looking to do process automation, this is where you can utilize something like Bubble, which Neil mentioned, and also Make.com is a great collaborative software that you can add into the mix. So if you were building on Bubble as your web application, you can hook that up to Make, which will do a lot of your process automation related work. And basically, all that means is you have a set process that you're going to go through. What are those tasks that you would normally do, or you would have someone on your virtual team complete? Now look to leverage Make as a way to be able to streamline that. So those are just a couple in the space that have matured over the last couple of years and kind of set themselves up as not only a low barrier to entry, but also a cost-effective way if this is something that is brand new for you.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Nick. Because like if you don't want to figure out a lot of the back end and authentication stuff with Bubble, Make plugs in really nicely. Same with Zapier's another good one.
Yeah.
So,
is there any other in the tech stack that you've used or had some familiarity with?
I started looking at so Bubble made it some pricing changes and everything for last year, which kind of they want to kind of go off a work unit. So I started kind of glancing at N8N.io,
Okay.
and they seem to be, a little more. There's supposed to be there's an open source license, so as long as you're running it on internal, business processes, there's no problem with that. But they look like they've got a nice user interface, and it's mostly backend things, but I'm sure it can connect with everything. So I started looking at that one. That one's kind of interesting. So
Awesome.
mhm.
All right. And then one last question before we wrap up here. Anything else that you want to leave the audience with that would prove helpful as they're going on that journey?
Definitely learn Keepa. Like, go dive into Keepa. There's so much subtleties in there, and follow all the people talking about Keepa on Twitter or YouTube. If you really want to dive into books, Joji has a good channel, Joji Davenport. He's got a Discord as well. Like, if you look under the comments and everything. Caleb Roth sold off a lot of his stuff. He has the bookflipper.com, but he's still got some good YouTube stuff to look at. Yeah, so if you want to get into book flipping, I definitely go look at those guys for sure. And hopefully
Awesome.
down the line, I'll have some content as well.
There we go. Excellent.
Yeah,
And then on
yeah.
the content space, where can the audience find you? Where can they connect?
Yeah, so just I'm on X right now, at the Neil Brady. So there's my handle right there. And yeah, that's it so far. So I know I've had some people ask, like, can I see some of the stuff you're working on? And it'd be a lot easier if to figure out. So I might be releasing some videos down the line here. So
Excellent.
Awesome.
All right, Neil. Well, we appreciate you coming on for this week's episodes of Nights with Nick, sponsored by the Prep Talk podcast. So that'll be everything for this episode.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for convincing me, man. Yeah. Good
Thanks
seeing you
for
guys.
coming on.